So thank you everyone for participating and joining us today. Today is really highlighting the partnership between 25 and SAP, and this is specifically around the integrated proposal pricing estimating area. Over the last couple of years, the partnership between the two founders, Richard and Magnus, has been growing to today, where we wanted to share with all of you guys that the great progress in the product that 25 was able to establish. With that, I wanted to introduce the two co-founders, Richard Mini and Magnus Bjørndal, who have an extreme long relationship with SAP, with the industry, and it's going back at least 20 years, I would say. And we've been working as the two groups from the industry business unit as well as 25 for 1.5 years now. And it was really a pleasure to see the product and the services that 25 developed over that time period to come into place. Do you want to go to the next slide, or?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Here, what we wanted to do, besides the introduction today, first of all, I wanted to thank you guys all for taking the time. As I said, Richard Mini and Magnus are the two founders of 25 with a vast knowledge in the industry. But then afterwards, Richard and Magnus will take us through the solution overview, key concepts, a live demo, and then the discussions in this area, and then Q&A at the end. Do you guys want to do a quick couple words towards yourself, Richard?
Yes, Richard Mini. So I've been working with SAP since 1993. I actually worked at Rolls-Royce Aero Engines as an engineer before doing SAP. And I've been focusing a lot on project-based industries like aerospace and defense. I came out to the US in 96 after developing a big portion of SAP's aerospace and defense solution in Germany, and then came out to help sell and implement that solution. I've been passionate about SAP ever since, and especially building solutions that close gaps in SAP, whether at customer sites as part of developments or whether as products. And I've teamed up with Magnus since 2017 to build solutions for project delivery and project cost estimating and proposal pricing and estimating for SAP, for project-based companies like aerospace and defense.
Yeah, and my name is Magnus Bjørndal. I was a long time working for SAP myself. I started at SAP back in 1999. It was actually just a little bit after SAP launched the industry business units at all. So aerospace and defense was one of the first one, and I started around that time. And in the beginning, working a lot in the MRO space together with British Airways, Singapore Airlines, and Lufthansa, and so on and so forth. And then a few years later, moved over to work more on the OEM side. The last 5 years I was with SAP, I was in the role that Torsten is right now. So I was the global VP of Aerospace and Defense. And then I joined a company called Dacian for a couple of years. And then back in 2017, founded 25 together with Richard and some other colleagues. So excited to be here, excited to share where we're at, and obviously love to have follow-up conversations with anybody that's interested.
Yeah, no. As you guys see, there's a vast knowledge with the two founders in place, and you will probably see this in the solution that they put together. That the depth of the industry knowledge is there, and really understanding the customers and tailor the solution together that is really fit for the industry, for our industry, as well as for professional services and other areas. So it's super exciting because this is really bringing a solution together where a lot of our customers spend a lot of time and effort and coordination. And with that, if we go to the next page, before we go into the challenges, there was one slide before.
Next slide.
The next slide. There was a second. There was a slide between, but I'll give that over to Richard and Magnus in a minute. But the biggest challenge, what we see, and we all have experienced this in our career, that when there's a proposal happening, all the companies, no matter if you're in consulting or if you're in an A&D company, these tiger teams are established to capture the program. That effort, in the past, has been very time-consuming. Coordination is probably the majority of the activities between the different team members. It's information from different areas in the A&D world as well as professional areas. It's tailored solutions, so it's not just a cut and paste effort, but it's truly responding to the customer needs, addressing those needs, very detailed questions. This ranges from all the way from terms and conditions to detailed topic experts that have to respond to questions and answers, to pricing, to legal. So it gamuts the entire process. This is constrained through locations. People are usually not always in the same place. A lot of the times in the past, they created these tiger teams and brought them together in one area to basically improve the efficiency and communication. That was done the old way. Now we had COVID, right? And even though some of the companies that you're working with are considered essential workers, and they were still able to get together, but that also put a constraint in it because a lot of people had to work from home. So now you have also the distributed set of people that work from home, work at different locations. So it brings all kinds of difficulties together. And what we've seen and what I've experienced also personally is there's in the past been way more effort put in place to coordinate versus to look at the content and really improve the quality of the response in this. So the effort of this discussion that we are looking at here is truly, I would say, shifting from automating processes and activities that are what I would call necessary but not necessarily valuable, and shifting more the efforts towards the content and the detail of the stuff, so that companies, especially in these days where it's critical to get new revenue in place, that they can capture that bid and be more successful. So with that, this is just the framework for everyone, and that's why I'm so super excited about the solution that the two really put to market, is because it really shows how you can bring data together and you can basically improve the outcome in it. With that, I'm handing it over to Richard and Magnus. Sorry for taking it that long, but thank you for being on the call, and I'm really excited.
Thank you,
Torsten. Thank you. So as Torsten described the challenge very well, in today's world, it's very hard to bid with confidence, and there's a lot of iterations, lots of people involved. Everyone brings their own knowledge of how this was done before, or they get hold of someone that's done it before. And it's very hard to bid in a consistent way on a new proposal or to estimate a new project, because each proposal, especially for aerospace and defense and other project-based industries, is somewhat unique. At the same time, you're under time pressure and the stakes are very high. 80% of the profit margin of a project is determined during the proposal bid phase, 80%. So the stakes are extremely high. If you underbid, you win the project and lose money. And if you overbid, of course, you don't win the project at all. So you couldn't be higher stakes. Today is characterized by collaboration, which is somewhat chaotic, lots of different systems involved, estimating methods that are unreliable, a reactive approach to risk and uncertainty. So people just make a guess of what it could be, and people have a hunch about how close we're going to be. Reinventing the wheel, So each time you do a bid, someone else does it a slightly different way. And then when you hand it off to delivery, to deliver the program once you've won it, they do it a different way again. And not much insight into your historical data. So we aim to solve all that. Behind that are some trends. So right now, there's a number of trends which are making it ripe. The time is right now to improve your estimating systems. There's a lot of government investment. Government bidding, US government bidding specifically, has special requirements around compliance and the basis of estimate and cost plus. And the government wants to know how you calculated every single cost in your bid. For certainly anything other than small dollar fixed price bids, anything that's large or cost plus. So they need a system where you can prove that your cost estimate is what it is. At the same time, engagements are becoming much more outcome based. So whilst instead of time and materials or repair charges, you're getting paid for performance, you're getting paid for output. And the result of that is you need to understand your cost much more accurately. You need to predict your cost more accurately in order to know your margin. There's a need for speed. Things are moving ever faster, but at the same time, there's supply chain risk, especially with COVID-19 and remote working and vendors being in trouble. The risk of the supply chain is very important, understanding that. And underlying this is machine learning is coming of age, if you like. It's the equivalent to mobile and social from the last decade. So artificial intelligence and machine learning and computing power, led by SAP's own HANA database, is really a powerful tool that you can use now to improve the way you estimate. And estimating and proposal pricing is a very data-intense, data-rich environment. So in terms of the solution, what we've come up with is an add-on to SAP. So it's a standalone app. It runs in a web, and you can use it to estimate project costs, even for internal projects. So capital project estimating is a major use case, even if you don't send anything to any customer at all. But then also to come up with proposal costs and proposal pricing, and to submit that to your customer as an Excel file or an online or as a Word document. The idea behind the solution is an integrated project pricing and estimating solution, which relies on a project knowledge base. That's your actuals, your project actuals and your history of prior bids, templates, library, best practices, and so on, other bid data and project data, coming from your SAP system and also coming from other systems. And when we talk about project actuals, that's labor, that's purchase orders, that's production orders, that's routers, labor rates. There's a whole ton of things that are coming from SAP. And using that project knowledge base, you can develop your scope, estimate your cost, analyze your risk, analyze the cost model and pricing. And then when you win the project, automatically create the project and the baseline cost for delivery. So this solution is a single source of the truth. That's the number one benefit that Cubic, the launch customer, got from this solution. They have one version of the truth and not a lot of different spreadsheets in different people's hands. It encourages best practice and reuse through continuous improvement using prior bids and project actuals to bid. It has collaboration built in, so teams can be spread all over the world and can work together in multiple currencies, multiple calendars, multiple work schedules, multiple languages. It's got very powerful estimating algorithms, which Magnus will demonstrate, such as based on performance history, cost estimating relationships, formula-based. It's government compliant, so it helps you to be compliant on your government bids to win some of this infrastructure business. It's got risk and confidence embedded, so it's not just a single estimate. You can do 3-point estimating, or you can do risk, or you can do independent assessments to work out how confident you are. It's got all the pricing strategies you would expect with tax and discounts, and it's integrated with not just SAP, but many other systems. Primavera, Microsoft Project for scheduling, Salesforce for opportunity management, other purchasing systems, legacy purchasing systems, and so on. In terms of another way to look at the solution, the best practice, you think you've got inputs as your opportunity and the RFP, and then the other inputs, such as the work breakdown structure that you normally operate to as a company, your internal WBS, price to win, design to cost, very important variables that you need to manage in order to do a bid. So price to win is about saying, what do I need to price this at to beat my competition? based on other factors which are comparable between us and the competition. What's the price I need to hit? Obviously, design to cost is your target. The margin is the difference, and the schedule. And then in terms of the outputs, we create a cost model, which can be sent to Propricer. I know a lot of aerospace and defense companies use Propricer, so we can send the output to Propricer for formatting. And we'll talk about that a bit more. But essentially, we create a cost model and a revenue model and a risk model, and it can be online in Propricer or it can be in Excel. We also create the price proposal document, a number of reports, a risk register, and the program baseline, which is what generating the project within SAP itself in order to deliver to the estimate. As you can see, underpinning the cost model are all the different bases of estimates put together by your subject matter experts or your functional leads, and they can use lots of different estimating methods. So thank you, Magnus. So just we've very pleased to have launched this solution with Cubic Corporation. Cubic Corporation was an ideal customer, not too big and not too small, kind of the Goldilocks factor. Too big and it would have taken too long, too small, it wouldn't have covered all scenarios. They do government and commercial. They do services and hardware. So they really cover the range of all the different bids. A fairly high volume. We're now putting about 800 proposals a year through the system. And it's obviously a high-tech A&D type of customer, and they're using it to put their bids together. It's been a long journey with Cubic. They've been very patient as we've tested the product, but now they're live and using the product, and they're happy to talk to anyone about their experience. So in terms of Propricer, just to touch on this, so Propricer is a estimating and pricing tool, with the focus being on pricing, hence the name. We are a little more focused on costing. However, we overlap when it comes to pricing. I would say Propricer has the government sort of portal, as it were, that certain government agencies use. So there are some benefits in that area. But at the same time, we have a whole bunch of functionality to help you with managing the basis of estimate that they don't have. When you talk about pulling in the bill of material from your PLM tool, exploding it using an MRP type of simulation, looking at PO history and curving the POs based on quantity and date, looking at production order history routers, that's not in Propricer. You need a tool like ours, or you end up custom building it, as many of you probably have over many years. And we've been amazed when we talk to customers how close what we've done functionally is to what they've built custom. So it's a certain methodology. It's complex, but it's definitely a problem that has been solved. At the same time, we're integrated with SAP out of the box. So that's another big advantage for people running SAP. You haven't got to build all of these interfaces, or in most cases, people using Propricer, they just download the data in reports and upload it to Excel spreadsheets, which gives you no control over that data. We're integrated, so the data is fully controlled. When you update a material master in SAP, it updates in our system automatically as a real-time sync. But that said, there are ways to implement our tool with Propricer. You could submit the price proposal to Propricer, or you could submit the costed proposal to Propricer to price it. So there are options, and we obviously have built that integration to make it possible for people to do. So let's go to the demo. Let's come back to this at the end, Magnus, if that's okay.
Yep. Okay. So in terms of the demonstration, there are 4 scenarios I wanted to quickly touch upon. The first one talking about scope development with reuse, and they're going to start from scratch with the proposal and just build out some scope. And next part, I'm going to talk a little bit about labor estimating, and then we'll talk about manufacturing, which will be your bills of materials and all that stuff. And then finally, we'll do some cost analysis at the end. If we still have time, we could also peek in a little bit into pricing, but we'll see how we get on with time. So if I go over here, so I'm just going to start actually creating something from scratch, which is some would say is bold, but let's do it. So this is my proposal for the webinar. I'm going to create a ROM in this case. The period performance is just going to start today and run through the end of the year. I'm going to use my government business in this case, and I have a couple of different sites. I'm going to use my Denver site for this proposal. And then right away, you get prompted on what's your starting point. Are you going to use a prior proposal as your starting point, or am I going to use a template? So I do have some DoD templates set up here, since this is a government bid. And in this case, this happens to be an engineering and manufacturing development bid. So when I'm choosing this, you can see that my template brings along with it a standard WBS structure, some phases, some custom fields that I'm using in that specific best practice, so to speak. So I brought in, so I'll quickly touch upon this. We do have a concept around special fields, or tags as we call them. So special fields and tags is if you want to enhance your cost model with new dimensions, you can both have standard ones. That's, in this case, you saw came with my template, but you can also add additional tags into this specific proposals. If I wanted to add whatever on-site as a new tag, you can see that now I can say I can categorize my labor as offshore, on-site, or shore, remote as an example. And that immediately means my cost model gets extended and enhanced with that new dimension. Then I'm going to go to my opportunity, and I can say I have an opportunity here in my CRM system that I can pull in. In this case, this is a fixed cost plus fixed fee type of proposal. I can see that I have, a phase as part of this. I can see that the standard WBS structure that I brought in. And in this case, I'm going to focus on this area around non-recurring engineering. So I'm going to turn this into a basis of estimate. The non-recurring engineering, I'm going to say that I need some labor and some other resources in order to do that. And I'm just going to release it. And if I now go into this estimate,
it will based on
I actually did hear my phone bing. I did get an email. And so in this case, so you see that I have just a standard structure in here that I've built in, but I'm actually going to do something different. I'm going to say, well, what if I, as part of this project, am building something that is similar to something that I built in the past? So as part of this project, I'm going to build a mobile app. And this mobile app, I remember I built a mobile app in the past for a different project. I'm not quite sure where it was. So I'm going to go and launch a search and look for that. And I remember, oh, this was actually built by my Denver guys. And now I can see, okay, I can see which one it was. So the goal here is to bring the information at your fingertips, right? So now I see, oh, I remember this is the guy. I built something for this specific proposal around this mobile app. So I can now choose. So I built this thing, and I can see what I did that last time. I had some labor estimates, I had some requirements, some risks, and WBS and other estimates. I can say, okay, I'm not going to bring in the risks and the requirements, but I'll bring in all the estimates. And now I can copy that in. And right away, I brought in now everything from that proposal. So I brought in the structure of the WBS. I have my labor resources that I brought in, and I can see as part of bringing those in, I can see that there was some design work, the development work, and some unit testing. And I have those resources. Maybe I need different resources in this case. And I can see that the way those things were estimated, I had different strategies. So the design work, I just put in some effort estimates. So maybe I need to change this because this thing is slightly more. And I can see that my software development was an estimate based on number of equivalent software lines of code. And I can say in this case, maybe I know that the equivalent software lines of code is 5,000, and I have brought in my standard from the company that I'm executing, that I'm doing 0.6 eSlogs per hour. Sorry about that. And I can save this, and I can also have maybe my quality assurance was based on a different kind of formula. So this formula is based on my total software hours that I just put in and a QA factor, which happens to be for my company 14%. And then I can bring this in. So different ways, as you can see, as I'm doing estimating, everywhere I can say, am I doing based on FTEs? Am I doing it based on effort? I can also use estimates to bring it based on actuals that I had for another project, and so on and so forth. I can see in this case, it also brought in some other estimates. So it has, as part of this, I brought in some infrastructure and I had some hardware that I needed to buy. So the goal here, as you can see, is I'm having all the information at my fingertips, and I can see all my prior bids, all my prior information, and I can very, very easily bring all that into my current proposal. So now, if I go to the next tab. So the next thing I wanted to take a peek at, so this is now moving to the next scenario. I'm going to look at manufacturing estimating. So in this case, I'm not estimating a software development anymore. This is more based on a bill of material. So in this case, you can see my work breakdown structure is I have some end items here. I have some manufacturing overheads. I have some excess and scrap and some support labor that makes up that overall package of work. And I can go and see, so what, in this case, I've already built this out. So I'm more just showing what I've already done. So I have some support labor that I brought in, just 200 hours. I have built some materials that have been brought in for 2 different items, an air vehicle and a satellite system that I have in this. You can see that the bill of material structure has some concepts like similar twos. So this is a very common in the estimating world that, well, I'm building new stuff, right? So when I'm building new stuff, I might not have any history to base that on, but I might know that what I'm building is going to be similar to something else. So I can then say that, well, this specific part is similar to this one, but I need to apply a 20% complexity factor on top of that because I know what I'm building is slightly more complex. So now when I estimate this component, it will use the history of my similar to part and apply complexity to that. You can see that I have different estimating methods that I can use. So in this case, this is completely configurable. You can build as many estimating strategies as you want, and you can assign different estimating strategies for different components. So commodities can have one strategy, and other kind of hardware can have different ones. And these can be based on, using routings or production orders and so on and so forth. And they're even acting as a sequence, meaning that for any estimating method, it can look at multiple sources and in a sequence. So it starts by looking at, for example, your production order history. And if it doesn't have any production order history, then maybe it goes to the routing and so on and so forth. So it's very, very flexible and powerful of how it can do the evaluation for all your data. So this in here as well, we can very easily, add other components. So if I have another assembly that I want to bring in, I can choose where am I bringing it in from. Am I bringing it in from a proposal? Am I bringing in a standard BOM? Am I pulling it from PLM or SAP? And then, once I've decided what to do, I can just copy that in. And very easily, I now have my full new structure that I brought in. So because the system always deals with all this information as what we call a remote store, it doesn't really matter how big these structures are because they load on demand. So we can handle very, very large bills of material structures here without any problem. And the other thing is, once we have done built out this bill of material, so you configure the bill of material based on your new proposal, we can then cost this. So basically, we have an algorithm now that does the costing based on those estimating methods that you've defined. And it will then go in and estimate the actual cost for those things automatically. And it even assigns a confidence score for that. So depending on how good the history is, and this is obviously, again, configurable, we'll have scoring. So depending on, for example, the age of the data and the, what we call quantity adjustment factor, which is, how different is the quantity you're wanting to buy compared to what you bought in the past. It can score this data with different confidence. So the user can look at the information and really understand, what's the overall cost, what's my confidence, and they can work more on an exceptional basis and look at the information that they really care about. So are there estimates that they have no estimate for at all? So the cost is 0. So of course they have to care about those. or are there ones where the confidence is very low, meaning I have poor history, and so on and so forth. So then they can go and review the individual requirements that they have. And when they look at individual requirements, they can pop up that brings the context of that specific part. So in this case, you can see I have different source documents. It just happens to have 2 purchase orders in this case. You can see how old those are and so on and so forth. And you can then choose of what you want to do. So in this case, I might say, well, I actually want to take the average cost of these 2, and I can confirm it. And what you'll see happen is now my source document is based on multiple POs instead of 1 PO. And this is the one that I also had a similar 2 parts. So you can see that it's applied also the complexity factor to it. The other thing you can do is you can apply other things like manufacturing overheads. So in this case, again, I'm using a formula. So this formula is using as basis the material cost, and it's applying a 2% outside processing fee for all my purchase parts. So this is just calculating a factor, applying that on top of what I have estimated. The next thing I wanted to show, which is for some reason I can't seem to, is in the cost analysis side. So in the cost analysis, this means as I'm building out my proposal, and as I'm doing all my inputs and estimates, in the background, the cost model is always getting generated. And the cost model is really a highly granular data for all your information. So this is like in controlling in finance and SAP, you would have all your cost booked in here. We do basically a simulation of the actual cost bookings over time. So cost, when you, I don't know if I show that, but when you define, for example, a labor estimate, you'll define a start and an end and a distribution curve. So that means you're literally creating cost records per month for each estimating record that you can then use to slice and dice afterwards. So in this case, I've just very simple. So I've kind of categorized my cost based on different cost types. And I also have it based on, is this labor versus material and so on. And I can notice that, oh, there's some information here that is not seem to be correctly maintained. So now I can say, well, I'm going to look at what is this information that I want to see. So I'm going to filter out and only look at this data. I can maybe then say, I can add another dimension to say, well, okay, I want to know which WBS that belongs to. So now I can go down and I find my WBS and I just put it in, I hit apply. And I can see, oh, it's this specific WBS where I had the issue. So then I can say, well, I'm gonna, again, apply another filter to only look at module 2. And then I say, maybe for this one, I can now spread it and show the real details behind it. And now I can see, oh, I actually have some estimates in here that looks kind of funny. So I probably need to go take a look at that and review what the issue is. So you have all this flexible information. You can also do other things. So these views, as we call them, this predefined way of how you configure the pivot, you can store them and for reuse purposes. So you can have a lot of different views defined. And as an example, I've set up something here for just doing a version compare. And you can see now in this case, I've set up the view to look at versions across the board and look at hours and across my various sites and different kind of resources. So this means, if you're thinking about a proposal going through lots of different iterations, you can always line them up and analyze the kind of how things have evolved over time. You can see that I've added another resource in my final. I've added 2 more resources over here. So you can slice and dice this information all day long, as you can see. We have some other things in here too, which is you can always look at your cash flow picture. So you can see your ins and outs in terms of cash flow. You can review all the rates that you have that are used in the system for this specific proposal. You can look at both direct labor rates as well as your indirect rates. So this, I can see that in travel, I only have G&A applied. Material, I don't seem to have anything applied, and for manufacturing or for labor, I have fringe overhead and G&A applied. So all this information is at your fingertips. The other thing with reporting, right, is of course this information is all available in HANA. So that means you can use any of your reporting tools to build any kind of custom reports that you want. So if there are specific views of the information that you want to have, you know, for your pitch deck and stuff like that, when you're reviewing a proposal. The last thing I wanted to show is pricing. So pricing, I mentioned we have different types of ways of how to do pricing. Again, pricing is completely configurable of how pricing gets done. In this case, I've just set up a couple of different pricing methods. One is a cost plus method. So here you can see that I'm pricing this based on my cost. I'm basing it based on the cost of a specific area of my WBS. So in this case, it happens to be all the cost that falls under delivery and preparation gets rolled into this line item. And of that cost, I'm then applying a 15% fixed fee. Or maybe I want to change that or whatnot. And then I can apply and get to my overall list price. I can apply discounts. I can then have my pocket price, which is what do I get? And then of course you can also have applied tax and then what it is the customer needs to pay. So, oh, that's why, sorry, I was in display mode here. And then we can also look at a fixed price. So in this case, it's just applying a fixed price. So I can change, maybe this should be 950,000 instead. And maybe it should be a minus 4% discount. So pricing, and obviously it's key then that you can connect the specific WBSs as part of what cost are rolling into individual line items. And then you can have different, as you can see, you can have different pricing strategies for different parts of your project. So you can have within one proposal, you can have both fixed price, cost plus, and T&M type pricing. I guess I can show one more thing since I'm really feeling in the mood for it. And that is, you've seen me use formulas a couple of times throughout the tool. Formulas is something that is very heavily used because it gives you that flexibility to have different ways to estimate different types of cost. So in this case, just to show you what a formula really is. So a formula in this case happened to be a software development based on ease-logs. And I can see that this calculates duration. And I can see that the input into that formula, or this is the expression, how it's calculated. I can have then different parameters, as many as you need, depending on how complicated this expression is. And then the parameters can be of different types. So there are really a few different types that really matter. So the BOE one means I'm requesting the estimator to input something. So in this case, the sizing input. I can also have some things that are by company. So this would be if I have specific factors, like for example, this, I might say that I have a standard that based on reviewing historical data, I know that for this part of my business, this is how many hours that I use per ease-log or per drawing or per function point or per whatever. I can also define something that is like an auto-calc or a base parameter. And that's what I did with the material cost. So there you can restrict what the parameter is picking up. So you can say that, for example, a parameter is, material cost equals all the cost where cost element equals ABC and stuff like that. So this formula concept is very, very powerful. And we can do cost estimating relationships. We use this for calculating indirect cost. You can do parametric estimating with sizing metrics. And we even have the concept of doing regression formulas. So this basically gives you the ability to provide training data to basically calculate the formula expression based on historical data that you have. So basically calculate the curve and the slope and the fixed cost for something like, it could be something like this, like if you have a lot of historical data around software development, we can use a regression formula against that historical data to calculate what the formula really should be. Okay, I think we can go back to the deck. Anything else you wanted to add, Richard?
No, that's all great, Magnus. Let's go to the last slide. So in terms of things to consider, so when you're deploying the application, it can be on cloud or on premise. You've got a choice. You could do a secure cloud, such as SAP's NS2, or most commonly with aerospace and defense companies, we've installed it on premise. It runs on a HANA database. It can be a sidecar, like a separate HANA database, or it can be your main HANA database if you're running on HANA using Suite on HANA or S4 today. We will connect to your existing SAP footprint in either case, either to ECC or S4. And in terms of creating the project baseline, we'll create it in your SAP system, in your S4 system, in CPM, Commercial Project Management, or in the Dacian extension, which aerospace and defense companies use for project planning. As you think about doing these types of processes, it's worth revisiting the risk management policy. Risk management is a topic which some companies take very seriously and other companies do quite informally. We can certainly build your policy into our tool. We have a lot of configuration around risk management to adopt your current policy, but there's also a chance to adopt best practices, particularly when it comes to deciding what's covered by confidence and three-point estimating and what's covered by a risk register, more advanced risk management, if you like, and how you calculate your confidence, 80%, 90% confidence based on Monte Carlo, based on some kind of formula. We can do all of that. So that's something we would encourage you to look at as we go.
Actually, I'm going to show this real quick. Sorry for stepping in.
Yeah, sure, please.
One of the goals that we want when you think about risk-based estimating is we want to get to a point where we can define your cost not as a single number. So the goal is, so when you start adding risks and confidence and all that stuff, is to get to what we call risk-adjusted cost. And this is really what, with a certain percentage likelihood, I think I will hit a certain number. So in this case, it says with 80% probability, I think I will hit, 3.65, 3.642615, right? So then you can define policies based on pricing, based on these different confidence thresholds. Like you might say that with a 90% confidence, I need to break even, and at a 50% likelihood, I need to make a 20% margin, or whatever those policies might be. But the goal is to really see this. And then obviously how this gets calculated in of itself, this curve, can then be based on strategies like Monte Carlo analysis, where you're throwing all the data at an algorithm to calculate this curve. But there could also be, other strategies for how you come up with this. But we want people to get away from this idea that cost is just a straight line, right? It really is a range of different outcomes.
I was just answering some questions in the chat as well.
No
so this is a very good tool as well to help you do more government business. Obviously, the compliance or government certification is done on a company by company basis, not on a software tool basis, but certainly it has all the components needed to help you become compliant if that's an issue. It's easy to integrate with your existing system. SAP integration is out of the box. Some PLM is out of the box. Some will build. And obviously, if there are non-SAP sources, such as maybe a legacy purchase order system or legacy production MES, we can integrate that. The integration is not that hard with SAP HANA nowadays. It's not as complicated as it used to be. And we're very familiar with the domain and how to do it, so we can do it quickly. So in terms of next steps, we'd obviously be happy to engage with people on a one-to-one to have further explorations. We do have a concept of a maturity assessment proof of concept. We can literally take your existing proposals, subject to NDA, and put them into our tool, one or two proposals only, and compare the estimates in terms of how the tool comes up with the estimate versus your legacy system, whatever that is. So we'd be happy to do that, or to engage with anyone on a one-to-one basis to talk about that further. So with that, I think we're kind of on time. We really appreciate everyone's time for hanging on the call throughout. We'll be sending the recording out. We encourage you to forward the recording and get in touch, either through SAP, Dave Blattner or Torsten Welty in the IBU, or get in touch with me and Magnus directly. Our website, www.25.com, you can reach us through there. Find us on LinkedIn, or just ask for email from whoever you know, and we'd be happy to talk to anyone. And thank you very much for attending the webinar. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you also from my side. Thanks, Richard, and thank you, Magnus. That this, as hopefully everybody's seen, this is a fantastic area and a great solution, and truly targeting the needs in that area. And hopefully you guys can see the same value and getting the same excitement that I did when I saw it first. And so let us know either through the SAP channels or directly, and look forward to more of the discussions and hear some of you guys actually share, hopefully at the next webinar, their successes with it. So thank you. Talk to you guys.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.